Welcome back to Tide Tonight. Last segment, we came back with Who Let the Dogs Out and talked about the Bulldogs. Does anyone know the tie-in with Country Roads? Do you know where we're going next? Y'all are going to hate me for this pun. And it's not West Virginia related, by the way. Country Roads take me home. Country Roads take Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes.
Oh.
Monday Night Football for the Kansas City Chiefs.
That was really
my guys behind the glass are furious with me right now for that. Benedetto's holding up a trash can. I thought it was pretty clever.
Where's the hotkeys when you need them?
Either way, my horrible pun aside, we have a heck of a football game coming on tonight on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, we do.
Possibly the two best teams literally in the sport of football on the planet Earth. Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs. Who you got? That Chargers game with Justin Herbert last week was very concerning. I mean, the guy is a rookie. He's never played in the NFL before. He found out a couple minutes before kickoff that he would be getting the start because the Chargers team doctor decided to stab Tyrod Taylor in the lung. It's not like the lung is an obscure body part either. Like, it's a lung. Like, we know where those are, right? This is your weekly reminder, everyone, that the NFL's overtime rules suck.
Are awful.
They
worst.
stink. They're terrible. First of all, ties can happen, which I just think is horrible.
Which it did happen in
the
someone's
Bengals
game.
and the Eagles tied.
In somebody's game yesterday.
Joe
You can
Burrow
have a tie?
Yeah. The Bengals and the Eagles tied yesterday. Joe Burrow got a tie in the NFL before he got a win. Ties are bad enough, but the fact that a team can win a game in overtime without having to play defense, like they get the ball and they score and it's over, that's terrible too. You're putting so much stock in the outcome of the game on a coin flip. I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. These guys go out and practice all week.
Who do we need to talk to?
Roger
Get
Goodell.
this
Apparently Roger Goodell, who
How
I
many
know
names do we
listens
need
to
to get
this show.
signed on a petition?
I was going to say, we know Roger Goodell listens to Tide
He
Tonight.
does.
Commissioner Goodell,
Please.
you hear us, sir. Please, I beg of you, on behalf of NFL fans everywhere, I implore you, good word, James Ludeman, fix the overtime rules. One thing I'll say about Fournette that I think makes this a good fit is Fournette's receiving ability, coming out of the backfield, catching passes. Does anyone want to take a guess about where Leonard Fournette ranked among running backs last year in targets in the passing game? How many times?
28th.
28th. All right. Do you have a guess? Anyone?
I'll go top 15.
Top 15?
I'll go top 15.
Leonard Fournette was actually 4th
Whoa.
in the NFL.
Wow. I love it.
Who's number one?
Behind Christian McCaffrey,
Of
Austin
course.
Eckler, and Tariq Cohen in that order.
Y'all couldn't think of a name. I mean, just the Washington football team. I mean, come on.
What's the team name that you want? Red Wolves or whatever?
I do not want Red Wolves. That's what most fans of the team want. I do not want that. My preferred name is Washington Warriors. I will also accept Wolves or Wolfpack.
I like the Warriors.
I like the Red Wolves.
It just sounds like a little league team. It just sounds like one of those random teams that you make up for the XFL or the AAF or whatever.
Name them the Power Rangers. That's what you should do. Just do that. I mean, that's better than the Washington football team.
But it's
I mean,
so
come
fitting in that it's a football team in Washington.
But it's so...
One could argue that it's the most fitting name around. Welcome back to Tide Tonight. Again, I am your host, James Ogletree, joined in the studio by my co-hosts, James Ludeman and Carly Horn, Joe Gaither and Sydney Ferretti doing the magic behind the glass. We appreciate them. You know who is under pressure right now? The Cleveland Browns. How about that transition, guys?
That was wonderful.
The Cleveland Browns are under a lot of pressure here, guys. Shifting from college football to NFL talk. The Browns were thought all offseason to be a playoff team, maybe not compete for that division title because the Ravens are in there in the AFC North. But I think they were generally thought of as a should-be playoff team. But losing to the Ravens 38-6 in week 1, I know it's the Ravens and it's Lamar Jackson, but it's not a good look. And now tonight on Thursday Night Football, they kick off week 2 of the NFL regular season against the Cincinnati Bengals. This could really be one of those games that's so bad it's good. Like each team has 3 or 4 turnovers and it's just sloppy, but it's also beautiful. Phillip Rivers going to Indianapolis, I think I don't know if it's an underrated move, but I'm personally a big fan of it. Even though he threw 20 interceptions last year, I think a lot of those were the fault of, they're his fault, but the Chargers offensive line is just not good.
No, it's not.
And his new offensive line in Indianapolis is arguably the best in the league. And now he has Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton to throw to. Yep. I think the Colts could be scary. And don't forget about DeForest Buckner on the defensive line that they just got from San Francisco in a trade. We're kind of forgetting how new Jimmy Garoppolo is to this whole starting quarterback in the NFL thing.
True.
Before last year, he had started 7 games in his whole career and was coming off of an ACL injury. And he goes 13-3 and leads him to the Super Bowl. I'm going to disagree with you there, Brian. I think the Bills have finally turned the corner. I'm
hoping they do.
It's a great story. The Buffalo Bills have been terrible for so long, and now they, to me, look like one of the best teams in the NFL. Josh Allen, their third-year quarterback, set a career high for passing yards in week 1 with 312, I believe. And then yesterday, throws for 417 week 2.
I was so
He breaks
happy.
his career high by 100 yards. But we do have a couple callers on the line right now with my man James Ludeman, so we have about 8-9 minutes left in the show. If you want to get in on this giveaway, call right now, 205-342-9904, and answer our trivia question. How many consecutive games did Najee Harris have at least one rushing touchdown before that streak ended on Saturday against Mississippi State? Quickly before we head to break, you mentioned Najee Harris, James, and how he maybe didn't have the rushing output that you wanted. 17 carries for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. The 3 touchdowns is nice, but Najee is actually on pace to end up as Alabama's all-time career rushing yards leader. He needs to average in the 90 to 100 range in every game over the rest of this season, and he will surpass Derrick Henry as the school's all-time leading rusher. Do you, yes or no, quickly because we got to head to break, do you think Najee Harris will end his career as Alabama's all-time leading rusher? We already talked about him a little bit, but I'm going to go Najee Harris. I think we really saw him develop into an all-around running back last year, became a much better receiver out of the backfield, stiff-arming the guy against South Carolina was kind of his breakout moment. He's no longer just a rugged runner. He's become a very talented receiver out of the backfield. He's better in pass protection. I think he will be absolutely crucial for the success of this offense in 2020. As far as what Josh said for the most important, I can't disagree with either of those, but for the sake of discussion, I'll go to 2 different names. On defense, I'm going Dylan Moses. I think we could all see just how much that loss meant to the team last year when he goes down, I think like the week before the season opener against Duke, and all of a sudden they're scrambling and have 2 true freshmen starting at inside linebacker. If it's Dylan and a true freshman, I think it's okay, because then you can tell him, you're supposed to go here, you got this guy, you got this guy.
What were your thoughts, your initial thoughts on the depth chart?
Well, I think the biggest thing that caught a lot of people's attention was having freshman outside linebacker Will Anderson listed as a starter. Now, Nick Saban had said a couple weeks ago that Chris Allen and Ben Davis, 2 veterans, were probably on track to be the starters at outside linebacker, and then these freshmen like Will Anderson, Drew Sanders would maybe get in on passing downs, just to kind of lighten their load so they don't have to learn the whole playbook. Let them use their athleticism right off the bat. Maybe get them in there on a 3rd and 8 type situation. Mm-hmm. But looking at the depth chart now, at one outside linebacker spot, it's Chris Allen or Ben Davis. And then at the other outside linebacker spot, it's Will Anderson. And there's not an or. There's always these ors on the Alabama depth chart. Like it could be this player or this player because they love to give us as little information as possible. But that was, I think, the biggest take for me. At outside linebacker, true freshman Will Anderson, 6'4", 235. Looks like he's on track to start for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Christian Barmore made some big old strides like last season, and all of a sudden, he's second string. I mean, can you kind of give some clarification on that?
Yeah, so like you said, Barmore was kind of one of the breakout players of last year. Really showed his pass rush ability, kind of carved out a role in Alabama's dime package where, like I just mentioned with Will Anderson, the 3rd and 8 passing situation when you want your speed guys to get out there and get after the quarterback. But I think what they're looking for out of Barmore is twofold. I think they're looking for him to be a little less emotional. That's always a Nick Saban, he's always saying that. Mm-hmm. We want you guys to play with emotion, but don't be emotional. And I think sometimes Barmore can let his emotions get the best of him a little bit. And then secondly, I think they want him to be a little bit more of a well-rounded player instead of just getting after the quarterback and just trying to wreck shop and go in there like a bull in a china shop. Maybe he just needs to settle down a little bit, stay in his gap, be a little more disciplined, and stick with his assignment. And that'll help him be better against the run instead of just trying to, I'm not saying he's trying to pad his stats, but instead of just going after the quarterback, maybe be a little more well-rounded, I think is what they're looking for. what disappoints me is people saying fire Pete Golding after week 1. That drives me nuts.
Man.
Now, I know last year wasn't the defense that we're used to seeing from Alabama, but with all these guys back, Dylan Moses back, LeBrian Ray back, Christian Harris gets another year under his belt. You have some returners in the secondary, some new faces there, some returners. But overall, I don't really see, unless you're one of those types of fans, like you said, who gets devastated if Alabama gives up any touchdowns, any points at all. I don't really see how you can be disappointed with this performance, given all the issues that we saw from Alabama's defense last year. The miscommunications, the mental errors, 12 guys on the field, just undisciplined mistakes that we saw last year that were just unlike anything that we're used to seeing from Nick Saban coach defense. And I thought for the most part, they played very well. They controlled the line of scrimmage. A couple little miscommunications just in terms of who's supposed to cover who. There was one play where Mizzou motions a receiver across the formation, and then Alabama leaves a running back uncovered on 3rd and 6, but the pass was incomplete anyway, so it didn't hurt him. Going back to the Mac Jones nitpicky or like kind of evaluating his performance, the stat line is pretty good, pretty efficient, 18 of 24 for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. But going back and watching the game today, of those 6 incompletions, 2 of them were caught out of bounds. 2 of them hit the receivers in the hands and they were broken up by the defensive back. And one of them was a wide open little wheel route to Brian Robinson that would have been a touchdown, but he just dropped it. So when I'm looking at his game, it's really one play, one pass that was off target. And other than that, he was on the money. His first touchdown to Waddle, where he just kind of threw it up a high arcing pass and it just fell right in Waddle's arms in the end zone. That's one of the best throws I've ever seen Mac make. And it came with a blitzer coming up the middle too. So on Saturday, when Mississippi State is playing Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Halloween, no less, and Nick Saban's birthday, not a good birthday present for a defensive coach, by the way, to have to defend the air raid. But you're going to see guys running deep. And there is still some inexperience in that Alabama secondary. Jordan Battle, we know he's got a lot of potential. He's becoming a leader, but he's still just a true sophomore. And he gave up a deep pass in that Tennessee game as well that was called back. And at the other safety spot, I think we would all agree Daniel Wright has struggled a little bit. DeMarco Helms was banged up in the last game. He's only a true sophomore. Malachi Moore has been playing great, don't get me wrong, but he's still just a true freshman. So I am very curious to see what this Mississippi State air raid offense with Mike Leach is able to do. I think LSU is going to win this game, but I am so intrigued to see how a Mike Leach offense at Mississippi State transfers to the SEC. Mm-hmm. With all of LSU's depth issues, with everybody that they lost to the NFL and guys opting out, I'm not saying the Tigers are going to lose this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's within a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And I think Lane Kiffin is going to make a big difference for them on the recruiting trail as well. Like you said, JR, just with him being on the younger side of coaches' energy. Yeah, I think just the fact that it's Lane Kiffin, it's a big name. He's active on Twitter. He's not afraid to kind of push the envelope and be a little obnoxious at times. I think that'll make a big difference for them on the recruiting trail too.
Yeah, I've had to take about a 5-minute power yoga class before I walked in here and said what I really want to.
So that's Lane Kiffin talking about that controversial call that cost his Ole Miss Rebels what looked to be a touchdown in what ended up being I believe a 6-point loss for them against Auburn on Saturday. So I certainly understand his frustration there. I certainly understand his embracing power yoga to help him deal with the frustration. Gotta love a good old Lane Kiffin quote.
Bo Nix is a pretty solid quarterback, and he's got his boy Seth Williams as a receiver. I actually played against Seth Williams in high school. But anyway,
did you line up against him one-on-one?
Do what?
Did you line up against him one-on-one?
Oh, no. I was a sophomore. Scrub on the sideline.
Oh, come on. Do you think you could have locked up Seth Williams?
No.
Oh, come on. I think you got it. I think you got the height. I think you got the size.
He's like 6'2", 6'3".
You could body him.
No. Not a chance.
I gotcha. So Palmer's got Auburn in that game. Carly, would you like to respond as an Auburn fan to these allegations of your quarterback crying on the sideline? What? And to your point about Bo Picks, quickly, we have to head to break.
Yeah.
But in his last 6 games, this season opener on Saturday, and his last 5 games of last year, Bo Nix has 7 touchdowns and 0 picks. So we may need to come up with a new nickname for Bo Nix here because he's protecting the ball a lot better now than he was at the start of his freshman season.
James, since it was your idea, I assume that you should go first.
All right.
Lay out 17 to 25. Who you got?
Let's do it. So first I'm going to start. We each have a little trivia question for one of the teams in our 17 through 25. And I want to start by asking you guys this. There is one FBS team that is returning a 1,500-yard rusher and a 1,200-yard receiver from last year. What is that team?
I've got a good feeling. Do you have a good feeling?
I actually don't know.
Then you get to go first.
Right. What's your guess? He's just throwing darts here.
Yeah, I'm throwing darts. And I'm bad at darts. Florida State?
It is not Florida State. Jacob.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it being Florida State.
What is your guess, sir?
Memphis.
It is not Memphis, although that is a good guess.
I felt like it was too obvious. Brian thinks he has a good idea.
Is it
That's
Kentucky?
behind the glass.
The Wildcats? You said Kentucky was in that, right?
Kentucky is in the list, but it is not them.
All right.
It is actually the Louisville Cardinals of the ACC.
That was my second guess. I know everybody says that.
They return a 1,500-yard rusher, a 1,200-yard receiver, and their redshirt sophomore quarterback, Mikael Cunningham, would have had the third highest passer rating in the FBS last year behind Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa if he had played enough snaps to qualify. Yeah, so this whole Trey Lance discussion got us thinking about quality players in the Big Ten and Pac-12 who could transfer to other Power 5 schools since Big Ten and Pac-12 have decided they won't be playing football this fall. And my number one is Penn State running back Journey Brown.
Ooh, I'm a Penn State guy, so I love Journey Brown.
Going to either Alabama or Florida. Now, Florida has Kyle Trask returning, like I talked about. They have plenty of talent at wide receiver, but they don't have very much experience returning at running back. And Journey Brown could be a breakout player for them if he were to decide to transfer to the Gators. Now, this doesn't consider scholarship limits. We don't know how much space
we have
these
no
teams have.
idea how
This is
it's
really just us kind of spitballing and saying, oh, that would be cool. I also said Journey Brown to Alabama would be very interesting because Journey Brown has a previous relationship with Alabama's running back coach, Charles Huff, who recruited him and coached him at Penn State before Huff ended up coming to Alabama. I like Hawaii, too. That's a good point. Their quarterback right now, his name is Chevin Cordero. He was Tua Tagovailoa's backup in high school, actually. I was nerding out over college football a couple weeks ago and found that out. He's got some game. I liked what I saw. So
That high school is a powerhouse.
It was, man. Marcus Mariota came out of there. Tua, obviously. Now Cordero is the starter at Hawaii. They had the next guy after Cordero is now at Washington State. So they just pump out quarterbacks there. St. Louis High School in Honolulu. Carly was just showing me some of the new Oregon uniforms. They have this, scroll back a little bit, Carly. They have the all yellow ones. Ugh, that's disgusting. Yellow helmets, yellow face mask, yellow jersey, yellow pants. It looks like a big,
The helmet is fantastic.
it looks like a peep, like one of those little, like real sugary bird
the Easter
candies.
The little
Yeah,
Easter
yeah, you give
candies?
out, yeah, they look like a peep is what they look like. They're just head to toe yellow. I'm from Virginia, dude. Virginia's not the North.
Oh my God, I'm not from the North either because Maryland is under the Mason-Dixon line. But yeah, we are from the North. But
No, we absolutely are not.
to people from down here, you and me, we're from the North. We are Yankees. And if you want to call in and tell us that we're both Yankees, you can go ahead and give us a call at 205-342-9904 because I guarantee you there are some people that have some thoughts on that Virginia is the South. It absolutely is not.
It absolutely is, and I could give you several reasons why, but we're not going to get into that.
I've always considered Virginia to be in the South.
Really?
Yes.
And Carly, remind us where you're from.
I am from Jacksonville, Alabama.
From Alabama.
Boom. Alabamian says Virginia's from the South. Let's go. Welcome back to Tide Tonight for our final segment this evening. Guys, Ice Ice Baby is playing. We know we're talking some other sports other than football. Where could we possibly be going next but the Stanley Cup Finals? Game 6 tonight. I'm getting the boo again, man. I worked hard on these puns, Benedetto. Don't give me that. Come on now. I got to tip my cap to Steven Stamkos, though. For as much time as he missed this year to come in Game 3, as hard as he worked to get back, it was great to see him get in there, play like 5 minutes, right, and score a goal.
I don't even know if he played that long, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
he was out there for like 2 shifts, and then he ended up scoring a goal. It was the first time he played since February 13th.
All he does is score goals. He just shows up.
true.
Hey, guys, how's it going? Good luck. I'll give you a goal, and now go win.
And then I'm out.
The roster from Avery Johnson's last year to Nate Oates' first season last year in 2019 and 2020 to now, it's kind of insane how many players were on the team in Avery Johnson's last year who are not now, and how many new guys they've brought in. So I think it shows you what Nate Oates and his staff want, the kind of guys that they're looking for. And it kind of says to the doubters who said Alabama went out and hired a coach from where? Buffalo? Is that really going to work in the SEC? I think it shows you so far that it has. Can we pour one out for the Phoenix Suns going 8-0 in the restart and they
You
miss
just
out on
had
it?
to bring
Man,
that up,
that's a-
didn't you?
Peace.
Yeah, I would also go with the Bucks. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, with the only win against the Washington Wizards, who finished the season 25-47.
Those are my Wizards, okay?
Your Wizards?
You're Wizards fan? Okay.
Yeah, I'm from that area. Yeah.
Take over for your team, baby. I
Hey
like
man, I'm from Virginia too, but I'm not a Wizards fan. That's a rough life. And I think the Bucks are in trouble. So I'm going to drop some more stats on you guys.
Hit it.
I'm sorry.
Here we
but-
go.
I love it. Hit
Here
it.
we go.
So looking at game 1, there were a lot of things that the Bucks did wrong that led to them losing. Game 2, they corrected a lot of those things and still lost. Bucks have been a consistently great team in the paint throughout the season. Game 1, they lost the paint 42-24. And then game 2, they won the paint 52-32, still lost. Game 1, the Bucks were minus 11 in free throws. Game 2, they were plus 8 and still lost. Game 1, they were out-rebounded by the Heat 53-44. Game 2, they beat Miami 50-38, and they still lost. So this is telling me that the Heat, despite being the number 4 seed, have found multiple ways that they can beat the Bucks, who are the best team in the NBA in the regular season.
James, just kind of tell us what you've learned over the past few hours concerning those 2 players and what people should know considering why this team is so passionate about the subject.
Right. So Sterling Brown is a current player on the Milwaukee Bucks. Back in 2018, he was approached by a Milwaukee police officer for parking between 2 handicapped parking spaces. Began conversing and interacting. The officer requested backup. And then the officer was telling Brown to remove his hands from his pockets, and he was telling the officer he had stuff in his hands, which led to him being tackled to the ground and tased. And then he ended up being arrested on suspicion of resisting arrest.
James, you want to talk about this cancellation news? And
Yeah,
also
so-
the Mark Emmert news as well.
Yeah, the news came out yesterday from NCAA President Mark Emmert that no fall championships will be held this fall except for FBS football, because the FBS football championship is not under the NCAA. So all NCAA championships in the fall, which include soccer, volleyball, and cross country, will not be held this fall. Very unfortunate for the athletes in those sports, but just with as many schools as are opting out and deciding that it's not safe or too risky to compete in those sports in the fall, that was the direction that the NCAA decided to take. Pivoting back to the football side, one of the main concerns for the Big Ten and the Pac-12 that led to them deciding not to play football this fall was this heart condition that I've never heard of, and I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I believe it's myocarditis. I found an article by John Wilner of the Mercury News in San Jose, obviously in Pac-12 territory, where a source within the Pac-12, I believe on the Pac-12 medical task force, said, if all the other leagues had the same medical information that we have, I don't know of a president that would look at what our medical staff provided and decide that it was okay to go forward. As far as the differences between the conferences' approaches, there was a story that came out in The Athletic just about 2 hours ago. It was an interview with Catherine O'Neill, who's a professor of medicine at LSU and also LSU's representative on the SEC's medical task force. And when they asked O'Neill why she felt like the conferences had taken different approaches, she said, down in the South, where in SEC and ACC country, they've dealt with this for longer. So they've had more time to formulate a plan and prepare for this. And that's why they're able to be patient and take their time and still leave open the possibility of playing football in the fall. Meanwhile, in Big Ten and Pac-12 country, it hasn't been an issue for them for as long, so they haven't had as much time to prepare for how they're going to handle this. I thought that was interesting. That was a point that I hadn't considered about why the Big Ten and Pac-12 were so quick. Meanwhile, the SEC and ACC are still taking their time. I heard that report this morning that it was 6 Big Ten schools. I think it was Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska.
You don't have to name
Iowa.
them. Just say all the good schools in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
Just-
basically all the good Big Ten programs.
Yeah,
were
because
considering,
Rutgers and Maryland did not care about this at all.
not at all. Were considering having their own kind of spin-off conference just for the 2020 season, where the 6 of them, each team would play the other 5 twice. That would have been a lot of fun. I would have loved to see that. Ohio State versus Penn State twice. We thought we weren't going to get it at all, and we would have gotten it twice. Man, I feel like we're missing out
Would have
now.
been similar to an NFL schedule.
Yeah,
you know.
that would have been fun. Yeah, and this kind of leads into the discussion about transferring too. But I mean, we've never had circumstances like this.
Right.
I really don't see any viable reason why these athletes shouldn't be able to retain their year of eligibility and shouldn't be able to transfer right now if they're in a Big Ten or Pac-12 or another conference that isn't playing this fall. I don't see any reason why they should not be allowed to transfer right now, today, and be eligible to immediately play at their new school. There's no reason for that not to be the case. Joe Burrow tweeted about that this week. You know, that's a guy who came from the Big Ten at Ohio State. If he were in this situation, if we had had this pandemic hit 2 years ago when he was at Ohio State, he wouldn't be the number 1 overall pick and the starter for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. He probably, I think he actually said in his tweet, he probably would be bagging groceries or trying to find a job out there. He never would have had that chance to prove himself and never would have probably made a career in professional football.
Is there an asterisk next to that or any NFL team or Major League Baseball team that wins?
I think college football is the main one that we would have to have that discussion. NFL,
Wow.
MLB, NHL, NBA, I think all of them have done what they needed to do to ensure that their champion for this crazy shortened season due to COVID-19 will be a legitimate champion. In the NBA, instead of allowing 16 teams into the playoffs, you allow 22 into the bubble, I believe, and allow them, you have these play-in games to determine who's really playing the best going into the playoffs to ensure you have a legitimate champion. NHL, you go from 16 to 24. Let them battle it out. Kind of alter the playoff format a little bit to make sure you get the best teams to make up for what we lost to the regular season. MLB, we go from 10 playoff teams to 16. College football, though, we're losing 2 of the Power 5 conferences. And I know it's the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 hasn't really been relevant in the college football playoff conversation in a couple of years. But anytime you only have 3 of the 5 conferences competing for the championship, you're going to have to question years down the road whether that championship means maybe a little bit less than previous championships. I hear everything you guys are saying. I just have a little bit of an issue with saying this team is the national champion when they're not competing against the whole nation. And we know that the Ohio State fans, if the Big Ten ends up not flip-flopping around and playing this fall, you know that whoever wins the national championship, the Ohio State fans are going to say, well, they didn't beat Ohio State, so they're not really national champions. Guys, let's start off tonight with some college football news from yesterday and today, talking about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 deciding that they, in fact, do want to partake in the college football season this year. The Big Ten announcing yesterday that they will begin their conference season the weekend of October 23rd and 24th. And last night and bleeding into this morning, the latest Pac-12 news is that it looks like they're going to be part of this as well. Bruce Feldman in The Athletic reported that a Pac-12 coach thought that his players may not be ready before the middle of November. And if the Pac-12 starts playing football in the middle of November, they're going to be able to play 5 or 6 conference games and then a conference championship. And then immediately it's time for the college football playoff. Just before we get into the nitty gritty of that, what's you guys' immediate reactions to just having the Big Ten and Pac-12 say, oh, don't leave without us, guys. We want to be a part of this too. Shifting out of critical mode, I did want to give the Big Ten props for their scheduling model. They're going to a conference-only schedule, but then the week of the conference championship game, you obviously have the winners of each division playing each other, but you also have the second-ranked team in each division playing each other, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. And I think that's great for us as fans of college football. I think it's great for the league because you have better matchups. You're not going to see these blowouts like Penn State or Ohio State whooping up on Northwestern or Illinois or whoever. And really, it could help the conference in maybe some of those second-place teams. Like last year, that would have been Penn State and Minnesota. Maybe they're sitting there at 7, 8, 9 in the college football playoff rankings the week of the conference championship. if your conference champion happens to lose, maybe that gives you a better chance of getting another team in there if your conference champion or if your top ranked team in that conference championship game loses. So I thought it was very smart. I love the idea of having these equally ranked teams play each other, and I think it'll help the conference in terms of their chances of getting teams in the playoff as well. James, I loved what you said a second ago about the Pac-12 being spineless. And in that Bruce Feldman report in The Athletic that I mentioned, he had a Pac-12 coach that was quoted as saying, talking about the entire Pac-12 conference, our nose is so effing far up the Big Ten's butt. And he didn't say butt.
He said assets.
Up the Big Ten's assets.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, that just tells you all that you need to know. I mean, that tells you it's not just fans and media pundits who are just piling on to the Pac-12. That tells you that people who are literally in the Pac-12, who make up the Pac-12, a coach in the conference, is saying this. All right, Carl.
I guess it's time to wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up on that note. Get out of here. We appreciate you guys listening to Tide tonight. One more time, I'm your host, James Ogletree. From my co-host, James Ludeman, Carly Horn. Thank you to Joe Gaither and Sydney Ferretti behind the glass. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great night, T-Town. Enjoy some Thursday night football, and we will talk to you next week on Tide Tonight.